Special Investigating Unit celebrates 25 years of fighting corruption. The SIU has made significant recoveries of public money and set aside several contracts that were unlawfully awarded by state institutions. Its mission is to ensure that corruption has no room to breathe in any sphere of government. SIU spokesperson Kaiser Kganyago joins us this evening to talk about this milestone. Thank you very much, Mr. Kganyago, for your time. So the SIU was set up in 1997. Tell us a little bit briefly about how the organization came about.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your viewers. The organization started initially as what we used to call at the time the Heath Commission, which was headed by Judge Heath at the time, and it was bound to be just a temporary commission. And then because of the amount of work that was coming through, we ended up with 1996, where the formalities were made for this organization to then start and be called a Special Investigating Unit. And that is how it happened. And the first offices of the SIU were done in East London at the time.
So the mandate of the SIU has stayed the same, but the need for the organization has really intensified over the years. How do you see the role of the SIU now, 25 years on?
We see the SIU as an organization that is guarding the purse of government, and we see the SIU as an organization that is striking against corruption. And that is why in the rebranding that we have done and launched 2 days ago, we have changed our motto or a payoff line from being poised to strike against corruption to striking against corruption, because that is what we see ourselves to be doing. We have saved a lot of money from government institutions, and we make sure that those that have benefited, we get that money back, because that money is supposed to be used to uplift the people of South Africa. And that is the positioning that we have put ourselves as the SIU, to make sure that the public out there understand that we are given a mandate, and we will make sure that this mandate is really done to the best of our ability.
With so much reporting about ongoing corruption, it's very easy to look merely at the negative and not to remember all those positives. So remind us about some of your most prominent victories over the past 25 years.
Yes, maybe let me start at the beginning. Shortly after the SIU was founded, we were seized with farms that were transferred to some people in the Eastern Cape. And we did the investigation. By around about 1999, we were able to recover 204 farms, and a lot of people were put to task at that particular point. But fast-tracking to now, you have all seen what we have done in relation to the PPEs, where we were investigating more than 5,000 contracts, and we have made sure that we take the money and recover money from the people that were involved. One of the biggest recovery that we have done is in the Eskom investigation, where after our investigation on the contract that was entered into between Eskom and ABB, we were able to recover an amount of 1.6 billion that was paid back by ABB after realizing that we've got evidence against them. And that is what we did. The other one might be the issue that relates to digital vibes. You all know. That came out of the same PPE, and the Department of Health in Gauteng, in the Eastern Cape, and many others were able to deal with. The housing project that was happening in Limpopo, what we used to call the Talana project, people know what we did there, and we're able to recover whatever needed to be recovered, and people were arrested. Another one that is prominent for us is the issue of Transnet, where we're able to take all the houses and about 35 cars from Mr. Msagala, and those were forfeited to the state. I can mention many other investigations that we did, but these are some of the most recent one is the one of Mr. Ndlovu, you remember, that was in the mail. And that of the lottery, where we have preserved a 27 million rand house.
So lots of positive stories, but one cannot talk about the fight against corruption in South Africa without talking about state capture. Do you think that somehow the SIU failed South Africans during the period when state capture was rampant?
Not at all. You will remember that most of the cases that went before the Commission on State Capture, we already had proclamations around them. Some of the cases that went, for example, the asbestos matter, it was investigated by the SIU. By the time State Capture Commission happened, we had already made recommendations and people were arrested and they are being prosecuted as we speak. We have got proclamations at ESCOM that relates to most of the issues that were before the state capture. And we have done a lot of progress around them. The same applies to Denel. The same applies to, I can mention many of them. Most of them, we have got proclamation Transnet, we've got proclamation PRASA, we've got proclamations, and we've made a lot of progress around it. And that is why, in our response to the report of state capture, we have indicated clearly that we will continue, because we already have proclamation, we will continue with consequence management in relation to that. We are not going to be hampered because now there is this report. We will study the report and see where the commonalities are, but we have got proclamations, we'll continue to deal with them.
There are so many investigations that are ongoing, and that's great because it means that we are unearthing and exposing the rot. But we're not seeing nearly enough prosecutions or convictions, or perhaps the public is just not aware of all the undercurrents of prosecutions that are ongoing. Where are we getting it wrong, if we are? And tell us about some prominent arrests that might not be foremost in our minds.
Maybe let me start that by prefacing it in this way, that our responsibility is to recover monies, which is what our mandate says. And when we get criminality, we refer it to our sister organization like the NPA, and they then ask the Hawks to work. Therefore, obviously, we will not be able to sit here and account on behalf of the NPA. Safe to say that as the SIU, when we have made referrals, we then go and engage, because we've got memorandums of understanding with the NPA, where we engage with them and check how far these matters are. And some of the examples that I can give that I know of, where the prosecution has started, will be the prosecution in ESCOM. You would know that there were officials of ESCOM that were arrested and they are now before the courts, they are being prosecuted. You will know on the asbestos matter that the collaboration between ourselves, the Hawks and the NPA worked very well, and the people are already before the courts. And you will remember that is as a result of the SIU investigation. Therefore, the processes are going on. Obviously, the NPA can come and explain. I've seen in the past week or so, they were talking about the cases that are before the courts, and they can come and explain that for themselves. But we make sure, as we are instructed by the Act, that when we find criminality, we will go out there and refer it. And in cases where there are officials that needs to be disciplined, we refer that. But we have gone further than that, to even ask the presidency to help us to monitor all of these things that we are referring, and they have set up a team in the monitoring department to make sure that they monitor all our referrals and make sure that they are being acted upon.
The ideal would obviously to get to a stage where the SIU is not as needed as it is at the moment, where your job is merely, in terms of monitoring and just keeping an eye on things and not being so busy. But what are we learning at the moment as we see the state capture report seeking to bring people to account? What is the SIU learning about how it can perhaps improve and streamline processes?
We are learning a lot, but also we are doing what, when we do investigation in any of the government departments, we make sure that we don't just go in, investigate and get out. We look at the loopholes and we make systemic recommendations, where we are able to say, these are the loopholes, close here and close there. But we are even going further to go digital around these matters, where we want to go and make sure that we look at the patterns and then we are able, using technology, to show people where they are vulnerable, to be able to say, to detect a corruption even before it happens. And this is where we are looking at the digital side of things to make sure that we are able to do that. And that will be an ideal, so that we do not only come when the deed has happened, and we can only, some of these things we can prevent them before they happen, like we're preventing even now, where we come in and we find that money has not been paid. We are able to then prevent that money from being lost and make sure that it remains within the state coffers.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us. The Special Investigating Unit celebrates 25 years of fighting corruption. That was SIU spokesperson Kaiser Khanyago.